What's up, guys? So today I'm going to see if I can just smash out two videos, hopefully upload them both today. So we've got Captain America, Winter Soldier, and if all goes according to plan, Guardians of the Galaxy will be coming straight after. So let's get straight into it. The first reference, or Easter egg or whatever, is Captain America's list. While it may not reference anything groundbreaking as far as connecting to comics or the rest of the MCU, it does change depending on where you see the movie. For instance, I bought mine off Amazon and it was shipped from America, so I've got the US version. So my list includes things like I Love Lucy, the moon landing, the Berlin Wall, up and down, Steve Jobs and Disco. But if I had bought the Australian version from an Australian store, it would have had things like AC/DC, Space Travel, Steve Irwin, Skippy the Bush Kangaroo, and Tim Tams, which, honestly, just iconic. The UK version would have had things like Sherlock, the BBC show that has Benedict Cumberbatch in it, who ends up playing Stephen Strange, who is an Easter egg further on in the film. Just for your consideration, the moon landing, like the American one, the Beatles, of which Ringo is one, and Ringo was one of the nicknames given to Trevor in Iron Man 3, the World Cup of '66 and Sean Connery, who Trevor says he once met in Iron Man 3. So the UK one sort of has some references to the rest of the MCU in a weird way. But yeah, then we move on. Black Widow asks if any of them know where the Smithsonian is. The Smithsonian happens to be the museum where they've actually got the Captain America exhibition that we later see in the film. When we're then on the mission, the suit Captain America is wearing is the one he wears in the Secret Avengers, and they chose that one because it was a little bit more sleek, made more sense for covert operations, which is what he's now doing for S.H.I.E.L.D. The Lemurian Star, the name of the ship that they're going to save from pirates, is named after a version of fish people from the comics, who are sort of similar to the Atlanteans, in the same way that Lagoon Boy and Aqualad are both Atlanteans in the Young Justice show, just to sort of give you an idea of how they look different. Then we've got George Batroc, the leader of the pirates. Now, his name obviously is the comic name of Batroc the Leaper, but his costume is also purple and yellow. He's got the purple on the mane of his chest with yellow trims, and Batroc the Leaper would obviously fight a lot with his legs, and we see the fight between him and Cap on the main deck of the ship, and Batroc uses a lot of kicks and flips and all sorts of things, letting us know that this is indeed Batroc the Leaper, and there is no way anyone can say it's not. The strike team, which stands for Special Tactical Reserve for International Key Emergencies, wear these patches. So we haven't even gotten onto the ship yet. This is still all there on the plane. All these things sort of get name dropped at one point or another on the plane before they get there. But they wear these patches, which, as you can tell, has the S.H.I.E.L.D. logo on it, which is cool. But they're also yellow and green, which are the colors of Hydra. So right here, we already know what's going to happen. So, spoiler alert, right there. Captain jumps out without his shield, and one of the guys goes, "Does he have a shield?" To which Rumlow replies, "No, he didn't." This is in reference to the Ultimate #1, where Cap does the same thing, and an army guy says, parachutes are for girls. And there you go, that's why he doesn't wear a parachute when he jumps out of a plane. When Natasha lands on the deck, she says, "What about the nurse across the hall from you?" Continuing their little conversation about trying to get him a girlfriend or something. The nurse across the hall from you is the cover of Agent 13, obviously. We later find that out. Once they get back from the mission, Captain America is shown the Insight helicarriers and their new repulsor engines, which came courtesy of Stark after he got an up-close look at the old ones. This is in reference to that fun little shot where he's getting spun around in the old turbines in the Avengers. Alexander Pierce, the leader of Hydra and the sort of secretary of S.H.I.E.L.D., is actually from the comics. I can't remember in what capacity, but I believe he has a very similar capacity in that. I would have to double check that fact. Later on, Sam calls Captain America the Running Man. The Running Man is a film from 1987. While it's not technically confirmed, you can't see anything to say it's definitely this thing. There is a yellow truck that appears twice in this film. The first time is when Fury brakes for the intersection of two cop cars go into it. The truck clears them both, smashes straight through them. And later on, when Winter Soldier throws Jasper Sitwell out of the car across the divider on the highway, he gets hit by a yellow truck. Many people think that that's the Punisher, and obviously because he knows that they're Hydra agents, somehow he's able to just mow them down without even feeling any sort of remorse. And the most likely theory for how he knows that is because Nick Fury figured out who they were, and in the comics, Nick Fury and Frank Castle were both in the army together. So that's a potential. When we first meet Kate, she says her aunt is an insomniac. Her aunt is obviously Peggy Carter, who Steve has just gotten back from talking to. She later then comes in after Nick's shot and says, "I'm Agent 13 of S.H.I.E.L.D. Special Services," or something along those lines, letting us know that she is in fact Agent 13. But up until now we don't actually know what her name is, and it's not clear that Peggy Carter's her aunt. She says Foxtrot is down in the comics. It's another sort of moniker for Nick Fury. Fury obviously starts with an F, and the military sort of code for the letter F is the word Foxtrot. So that's why she says Foxtrot is down. Winter Soldier's arm, which we get a very clear sort of shot of for the first time when he catches the shield with it, is this movie's version of the arm missing Luke's hand cameo reference thing. It's the Winter Soldier's arm in this one, because no one actually loses any hands or arms in this. It's just that this one character has a metal arm because the rest of his arm is missing. Black Widow's necklace, when they're going undercover, trying to escape, has a little arrow on it. The Alexander Pierce's dad served in the 101st, and I couldn't find any other references to this in any other movies, because Bucky and the rest of the Howling Commandos served in the 107th, so I'm not sure if that was supposed to try and make us reminisce about those days or what, but yeah. When they go underground, we see photos of in the old SHIELD SSR bunker thing. We see photo of Colonel Phillips, Howard Stark, and Peggy Carter. Black Widow makes a War Games reference when she says, "Do you want to play a game?" When talking to, trying to crack into Zola's computer. Zola obviously has now transferred his consciousness onto the computer, in reference to his comic book counterpart, which we saw the original designs for the moving body suit thing in the first one, and then here he's a face on a screen, and thankfully we won't have to ever deal with the weird hunchback bodysuit thing that he has in the comics. If you are extremely eagle-eyed for a split second while Alexander Pierce is looking in his fridge before he starts talking to the Winter Soldier about trying to kill Cap and Natasha, you can very, very vaguely see a bottle of Newman's Own sauce in the fridge. Obviously, I can't remember his first name. For some reason I think it's Paul, but I don't know if that's right. But Newman was one of Robert Redford's close friends, so he gets a nice little mention there in a scene that features Robert Redford. Cap and Natasha turn up at Sam Wilson's house, and while they're talking about what they need to do, Sam sort of hands in his resume, saying that it's behind a 12-inch steel wall, the item that they need to get. This is obviously our reference to the number 12 for this movie. And then we find out that the thing that they're trying to get is an XO7 suit, codenamed the Falcon, because the Marvel movies like to not explicitly name their side characters for whatever reason. While I'm on that, naming them in an obscure way, the ghost story reference is into the fact that Cap thinks Bucky's dead, and they call him the Winter Soldier because I can't remember the exact reasons, but I'm pretty sure it has something to do with the fact that he was brainwashed by Russians. I'm pretty sure, and that's why he has a star on his arm. It's not because he's American or anything like that. It's because he was brainwashed by Russians. I could be wrong there, so don't quote me on it. Senator Stern makes an appearance. He's the guy in Iron Man 2 who says, "Isn't it funny how annoying a little prick can be?" And here we find out that he's working for Hydra, and he was trying so hard to try and get the Iron Man weapon turned over to them. So obviously we now know who really wanted the Iron Man suit. It wasn't the American government, it was Hydra, which is funny because then in Age of Ultron they're building their own robots anyway and trying to make an AI. So maybe if they'd had the Iron Man suit and were able to just sort of deconstruct it, they would have made Ultron so much earlier. Who knows? But it's definitely a possibility. Now the bit where Jasper Sitwell sort of name drops a couple of people has the internet going off. obviously no one really cares anymore because they've all excited for Infinity War, which is only a couple of weeks away. But at the time, this had the internet going off, like, who's he trying to name drop here? Who is he referencing? So, here's the main ones that I could find for what people thought each one meant, and what they could mean. So the TV anchor in Cairo could be referring to Mark Spector. A lot of people were thinking that it could be Moon Knight, Mark Spector, but that if he was a TV anchor, he doesn't then have his knowledge of fighting or whatever, which means that that's sort of, who knows. My argument for that would be, have you seen the movie Argo, where a bunch of soldiers go in as news anchors to try and, like, you know, he could just be undercover, in which case the TV anchor in Cairo is 100% Moon Knight, because when I was looking at what Phase 2 for Netflix was going to look like, every list of characters that people wanted to see on Netflix contained Moon Knight, so I pretty much have no doubt that Moon Knight's going to turn up at some point, somewhere. He seems to be a really popular character for getting a TV series of his own. The Undersecretary of Defense, I feel like that could be Tony Stark. I feel like. I know that in the comics he was once Secretary of Defense, so maybe giving him this lower position so that he's not actually in, like, you know, the head of something, which, you know, in the comics he's been head of S.H.I.E.L.D. before as well, so, but if he is the Undersecretary of Defense, it would make sense, because he's just finished saving the president from a bunch of fire-breathing freaks in Iron Man 3, so he would get some sort of congratulations for that. His company used to be weapons dealers. He has a friend in the army, right? He has his own suit of, you know, so if worst comes to worst, he can jump into it. And then obviously in Civil War, he signs the Accords and says, yeah, you know what, everyone already knows my identity. I'm going to sign this off so that I can keep building my suits. And so it would make sense if he's the Undersecretary of Defense as well, and sort of working his way up into that position where, you know, obviously if he gets into that position, he's going to be busy there, maybe being a liaison for the Avengers, for the government, and therefore won't be able to be an Avenger himself, you know, pro Accords or not, which would then give him a viable option to sort of drop out, but still be able to make appearances if they need, you know, a government liaison to jump in. That's what I reckon the Undersecretary of Defense is, because obviously this algorithm is looking into the future. The high school valedictorian in Iowa City, a lot of people thought that this could be Amadeus Cho. The problem with that is his mother, Helen Cho, is one of, like, the featured key characters in Age of Ultron, meaning that he would actually be living in Seoul, where she's working, so it's not Amadeus Cho. But there was, when both Cap and Bucky had sort of died in the comics, there was a teacher and one of his students that sort of took a version of the super soldier serum and tried to fill in the role of Captain America and Bucky for a little bit, and they were from Iowa. So I feel like it's just a Captain America comic book reference and not an actual, like, oh yeah, by the way, there's, you know, it's basically just these are Captain America sympathizers. That's what I think that one relates to. Obviously then he's just, well, Len starts just name dropping outright people. Bruce Banner and Stephen Strange. Bruce Banner is obviously the Hulk, and Stephen Strange is Doctor Strange, who didn't get a movie till after this. So my theory here is this is during the time where he's trying to fix his hands and Hydra's seeing this, and they're like, if he's able to fix his hands, you know, like he's starting to look down into like the mystical stuff, and like if he manages to learn magic, he could be an issue. So obviously, that's why I think he's been named up there, because we're at the point in his journey between being a self-loathing prick and being the Sorcerer Supreme, where he's starting to look into magic. We then get the shield punch, which is ripped straight out of the comics, where Cap holds up his shield and Bucky punches it. And it's interesting to note that the sound there is the same sound of Thor's hammer hitting the shield. I don't know what metal Bucky's arm's made of, but it is definitely not Uru, which is the metal that Thor's hammer's made of, because it's obviously found in the heart of a dying star, where it was forged, and I don't know any humans that would be able to collect that sort of metal. So it's kind of interesting that they used that sound effect there. Later on, Bucky actually holds up the shield as if he's going to be, you know, using it the same way Cap does. In the comics, Bucky was one of the people to succeed Steve Rogers as Captain America. The more likely one at the moment, based on a theory that I have from Black Panther, is that the new Captain America is going to be Sam Wilson as sort of Captain America Falcon that he has, with the really sweet suit. I love his Captain America suit so much. And that Bucky is going to become White Wolf in Wakanda and just sort of hide out there, because the governments of the world still think he blew up the UN. You know, only T'Challa knows that he's innocent at the moment, and it could be part of their world sort of sharing things that they share that information, but it's still more likely than not that Bucky will feel a debt of gratitude towards T'Challa, and therefore he'll want to stay on as one of his key warriors. The director, Joe Russo, makes an appearance. He is the medic that sort of runs in when they're bringing in, when Hill brings in Natasha and Steve and Sam. He's the guy that runs up to him and goes, "Let me look at her," and then Hill replies, he'll want to see her first. She'll want to see him first. So that's the director there. After that scene, we get the bit where Winter Soldier's eventually gets his mind wiped again, and Ed Brubaker, one of the guys who worked on the Winter Soldier comic book that the movie is based on, is standing there getting to see his creation brought to life before his own eyes. The Stan Lee cameo comes where he's one of the security guards at the Smithsonian, and he's the first to discover that Captain America has taken his World War II suit and just sort of run off with it. At sort of the SHIELD headquarters, there is a character played by Daniel Pudi, who is also from Community, which the Russo brothers worked on together before this film. He gets an honourable mention. When we're getting the shots of the different sites and getting all the targets that exist there, one of them shows a life sign in the Avengers Tower, which is, a lot of people thought it was Tony Stark, but I reckon it's Happy, since in Spider-Man Homecoming, Happy's the one sort of overseeing all of the stuff get put onto the Quinjet to take out to the new Avengers facility, because they're no longer using the Avengers Tower. So I feel like it's him. Obviously, as I said in the Iron Man 3 one, in the comics he at one point actually wore an Iron Man suit, and was part of the Iron Legion. That and he's the head of security for Stark Industries. So you take that out, and then you can just go straight in and take all of their tech. So that's my theory for why there's a little target there. After all, the helicarriers sort of shoot each other down, and we get the overhead shot of Rumlow being put on a stretcher. His suspenders, or whatever you want to call them, make an X across his chest, and his face is all messed up, meaning that he'll need to wear a mask, and he's got sort of the crossbone things across his chest, like the comic book counterpart, where he's actually a mercenary called Crossbones. And we get that costume for about 5 minutes at the beginning of Civil War. The Path of a Righteous Man, the little sort of inscription on Nick Fury's headstone where he's buried, is a reference to his character from Pulp Fiction, who quotes the exact same Bible verse. Steve's finally told that Agent 13's name is Sharon, Sharon Carter. One of the slides in the credits, yes, in the actual credits themselves, on the little slides before the after credit scenes, actually shows Captain America and SHIELD standing on the white side, and then on the black side of this same one shows him, shows a soldier and Hydra underneath him in sort of like a reflection on the lake or whatever. Now if this is SHIELD and this is Hydra, then obviously that's referencing the fact that in the film that we've just finished watching, SHIELD was Hydra and Hydra was SHIELD. So if they're just a reflection of each other, the two men standing either side of the line from each other are obviously a reflection of each other. So if that one's Captain America, and we know that because he's holding his shield, the other one has to be Captain America as well. And then later on, the comic book came out that showed that Cap was a Hydra agent, and everyone lost their minds, but it was shown right here. So this was a foresight for a comic book that has already come out because the film's old. We then get to see Wolfgang von Strucker, the guy in charge of the Hydra base. He says it's the age of miracles. Miracles is used because the word mutants was already being used by Fox, and to say that they're both mutants would not have only crossed that line of the things that Fox had actually paid for the rights to use, but would have just made it confusing as to how exactly this fits into the X-Men universe, or the X-Men universe fits into this, because of Days of Future Past just screwing it all up for us. Could you imagine, with enough people trying to figure out the exact timeline for the MCU, to then try and add in the X-Men movies and where they fall in? Too much. And then we get to meet the Maximoff twins, Pietro and Wanda, and we get to see a little glimpse of their powers. In some deleted scenes, Captain America leaves his Captain America costume in a gym bag, and this is before we see him rocking the high tops and the hoodie when he's in the hospital. What I like about this is that in Spider-Man Homecoming, the first time we get to see a Captain America reference is when Peter and his friend are in a gym class. So I don't know, is that a reference? I feel like it could be, looking back now, obviously. But at the time, when we didn't know that Spider-Man was going to come in, is it possible? Anyway, an extended scene for when Natasha's dumping all of the stuff onto the internet. Pierce name drops another couple key points of Natasha's story that if she gets her solo film, they need to explore, because we're just getting too many questions by this point. So we already know about Sao Paulo, Dracov's daughter, the hospital fire, and Budapest from the Avengers. Budapest is also name dropped in this extended scene, as well as Osaka and the children's ward. Now the children's ward could be part of the hospital fire, but that still leaves Osaka and Sao Paulo and Dracov's daughter and Budapest that aren't sort of connected to anything that we know of. One of those, probably Budapest, would be the bit where Hawkeye makes a different call and saves her life. So the other three are just things, I don't know. Dracov's daughter could have been in the child's ward in the hospital fire, and that could have been in one of those other cities, meaning that 5 of the 7 things that we've been given are now all connected, leaving just one other city and Budapest to be sort of worked with. Who knows, but if they make a Black Widow film, they need to answer these questions, because by this point I'm starting to just come up with my own theories of what exactly the movie's going to be like. And being an aspiring scriptwriter, I'm probably going to hit the nail on the head a couple of times. I'm not going to be 100% accurate, but I'm probably going to make a couple of theories that ring true. Anyway, that's all for the Captain America Winter Soldier one. This is the first film, and it continued on from here after, where they stopped making the one-shots. So from now on I can just do the film and some deleted scenes, and that'll be it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. Leave us a comment down below, let me know if I missed anything. I hope I didn't. That was a bit full on. But yeah, if I missed anything, please let me know in the comment section down below. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe. And until next time, guys, keep raising hell.